From London to New York, we're now going over to to Sriman Rasika Mohan Prabhu. I'm very excited to hear his beautiful offering. You all know who he is, but I still want to give a warm welcome. He was born into a devotee family. In fact, that family has been doing the Anukut festival for I think 25 years now over in New Braj. And in fact, he met Gurudeva. I remember when he met Gurudeva because I was there back in '96 in Gurudev's first barnstorming tour in Badger. It was an epic time, epic stories of Gurudev melting everybody's hearts in Badger. It was incredible. Rasik then took Harinam that year in Kartik of '96, and then in '97 took Diksha. And Gurudev actually told him at the age of 10 when he took Diksha to become brahmachari. So, and he's turning into a fine brahmachari. And he was living in Mathura and Vrindavan, serving under Prabhuji's direction since 2005. And then obviously when Gurudev disappeared under Prabhuji's direction, rendering a lot of service, translating Madhura Kandambini amongst other periodicals. And he's one of the key personalities who's set up the retreat under Prabhuji's direction in New York. So we wish him huge success with that. That's a wonderful endeavor, giving hope and aspiration for many devotees, not just in America, but around the world, seeing that happening. So Rasika, warm welcome. Over to you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad everybody. So nice to see you all. So nice to hear from Shyam Prabhu, fond memories with Shyam Prabhu and such beautiful stories. So wonderful hearing from all the devotees and connecting to Gurudev with all our spiritual family. So I'll speak for 30 minutes or so. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vandeham Shri Guruvaram Shirupanuga Prabharam Brajarasarasikang cha Narayanam tang prapanam Shri Guru Charanang Vande Ramana Pristaya Bhutale Rupanugha Bhaktidam cha Kripa Murti Narayanam Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Itadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tada Bhaktaya Namo Namah Tavevasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantike Devi Kakuvara Gadkara Yadyavacha Yache Nipatya Bhuvidandavadutpatarti Asya Prasadam Avudasya Janasya Kritva Gandharvike Nijagane Gananam Videhi Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Offering my Dandavat Pranam to my beloved Guru Pada Padma, Param Aradhyatam, Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaja Shri Gurudev, and unto their entire Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Varga, and to all assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis here and around the world. So honored to participate in this glorification festival, continuing throughout the year, organized by our wonderful sanghas in England, London, Ishwaranandan Prabhu, and everybody. So wonderful what you are all doing. Just a thought I've been having recently is that something I was thinking on Gaur Purnima. Why did Mahaprabhu not write more books? You know, what would be, he's Krishna, he's Radharani with the mood of Radharani, but yet Mahaprabhu gave us 8 verses, as if to say, I want you to focus very deeply on this thing. Don't get distracted, because there's so much information out there that there's a risk of making our focus on something that is not the most essential thing, especially in the age that we are in, where time is limited, intelligence is limited, and we're also busily occupied in various pursuits. So Mahaprabhu said, focus on this one thing. What is our spiritual journey towards the ultimate goal of life, which is that divine love and relationship with Sri Krishna, understanding also the significance of Srimati Radhika and aspiring to serve Krishna under her guidance. And that idea of that spiritual calling towards Sri Krishna being the most important thing. And that the basis of that all is we're all seeking for sweet relationship and love. And how can we experience that in the highest potential in the transcendental life? And so what I feel was also very significant with Srila Gurudeva and our time with him is that he, again, when he came, he gave us that focus. Become one-pointed. Anya bilashta shunyam. Become void of all other desires. Even for development of knowledge, fruitive activity, in the name of religiosity, and all these things, just develop one-pointed devotion. And that is the true goal. And that devotion will lead to the awakening of ecstatic love. And Srila Gurudeva exemplified that by his character, by his sweet dealings with the devotees. And that is what was so powerful about meeting such a personality as Srila Gurudeva, is that his presence beamed out, radiated this sweetness of Braja Bhakti. And so when he would speak, it was imbued with that power of sweetness and transcendental love. And when he would sing and encourage us all to sing, Govinda Dhamo Dharamadaveti, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, it would be so powerful. I remember in New Braj, after every evening Harikatha, Srila Gurudeva would walk back from the pavilion to his quarters, which is about 200 yards away. And the entire time, it would be like, kind of like a parallel to Krishna coming back into the town of Braj, the village of Braj, and everyone is outside waiting to have a glimpse, to have a sweet, short interaction, to offer a flower, to have a smile. And Gurudev would very, very slowly, it could take up to like 20, 30 minutes. Gurudev would just very sweetly and slowly walk back to his quarters. And that's some of my earliest memories, actually, being with Gurudev, is especially with the children. Gurudev was very kind and especially affectionate. And so he would, walk with his hand on our shoulder the whole way. And we would all kind of queue up to like, who's going to get the chance to be with Gurudev walking back to his room today. And sometimes it would be one of, the men, or a lot of times it was like one of the boys, Prem Pradeep or myself, or some of the other school children there that we grew up in our Gurukul. Gurudev, when he came to New Braj, I first met him when I was 9, and immediately your life changes when you come in contact with such a transcendental soul. We're all devotees, we're all sadhakas, and yet there's a whole other level. The difference between Baddha and Mukta. Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami a very important instruction. He said, Baddha ara Mukta, Falgu or Yukta. always understand the difference between a conditioned and a liberated soul and false and genuine renunciation. And so with personalities like Srila Gurudev, who is a liberated soul, and of liberated souls, in Sastra it says, of millions of liberated souls, you will find one bhakta of Narayana. And of all those bhaktas of Narayana, how many Krishna bhaktas, Braj bhaktas, how many Palyadasis of Srimati Radhika will you encounter in your sojourn in material existence? And so that moment when we meet a personality like Srila Gurudev completely transforms our existence in this world. It's described that we're all being swept along in the current of samsara. But that moment when we meet the transcendental personality who is a messenger of Krishna, it is like our soul, which is being swept along in this current, has come upon the bank, the shore of the transcendental land. And very soon now, our suffering condition in this samsara will end. And so I was very fortunate personally to grow up in a devotee community. We had many children there. When I was growing up, about over 100, 150 devotee kids, and so many families. We had not just in Badger, New Braj, but Pinehurst and Three Rivers and the little towns and hamlets around it. We would have festivals of Rath Yatra and Anukut in our place from the 80s, and hundreds of people would come. And we would have wonderful festivals. And, so from childhood, I owe a great deal of gratitude, to my parents, my mother, who was so encouraging. From the time I remember 4 or 5, you can't go and play. First, you have to chant one round. And so, okay, Hare Krishna, the beads, making sure, you chant properly. And then you're going and playing. So, that basis of Varnashram Dharma and devotee communities is so important. But then meeting Srila Gurudev, it's like a light turns on and your entire existence becomes focused on the goal, the true goal of our lives, which is the development of Krishna Prem. And so Srila Gurudev came and he defined that so clearly that it's not for this, it's not for that, it's not for this. Gurudev would give the story of Arjuna and the story of how his guru Dronacharya, his archery guru, all the Pandavas and Kauravas were assembled and they were doing a demonstration. Who can shoot the pupil in the eye of a bird on the top of a tree? And so Dronacharya would call forth each of them, Duryodhana. And first he would ask them, what do you see? And he would say, I see the tree, I see all you, I see the bird. And he would say, go to the next person. And one by one, everyone did not qualify to even perform the test. They had failed before even. Yudhishthir, Bhima, I see the birds. Finally, when it was Arjuna's turn, Dronacharya asked him, what do you see? He said, all I see is the pupil, the center of the pupil of that wooden bird. And Dronacharya said, shoot. He shot. Immediately it went right to the center. So Gurudev then said, what is your goal? Is it Varnashram Dharma? Developing good situations in society and dealing well with everybody? No. Is it Vaikuntha Bhakti? No. Is it, would you like to become in Vatsalya Ras? That's very nice, but no. Sakya Ras, very nice. No. Madhurya Ras, oh, most excellent. But not exactly. It's not the center of the pupil of the bird yet. Do you want to be Radhika's Saki like Lalita Vishaka? Padabjayostava vina varadasya meva nanyat kadapi samaye kila devyache sakyayate mamo namostu nityam dasyayate mamo rasostu satyam. Oh Gurudev, what have we learned from you? I offer pranam again and again to the position of the Sakis of Srimati Radhika like Lalita Vishaka. Offering pranam to them. I merely aspire to become the maidservant of Srimati Radhika. Kinkari. Therefore, Srila Gurudev showed that every time he would give his invocation to speak, he would say, Tavevasmi, Tavevasmi, Najivami Tvaya Vina, Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam, Nayamam Sharanantike. Oh, Shri Radharani, again and again, I'm supplicating you, please, when will you accept me amongst your group and thus make my life successful? Without that, I will give up my life. It has no purpose. And so Srila Gurudev would speak like these verses before his Harikatha. And then with that focus, then he would expand and teach you everything else. Prahlad Maharaj Katha, Dhruva Katha, Ajamil, Chitraketu Maharaj, all Ram Katha. Gurudev, he went on 32 world tours. And so he spoke thousands of lectures. And we're in the process of transcribing and publishing all those. But again, why we go back to Mahaprabhu? Mahaprabhu said 8 verses. Understand this. Then you can understand Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, everything. But first understand this vital importance of the spiritual journey towards Sri Krishna and the service of Srimati Radhika and Krishna under her guidance. So Srila Gurudev, I just remember, I don't know, it's funny because I don't have a recollection of how it came about. But I remember how, within a year or two, when 96 Gurudev came to New Braj and the whole community, I would say 90% of the community was swept up in the sweetness of his transcendental Leela. And even before Gurudev came, there was this kind of conspiracy. Should we allow him to come or not? There happens to always be some kind of controversy around great Vaishnavas. And then we would have, town hall meetings. All the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the community would come together and discuss, should we allow him to come or not? And Gopavindrapal Prabhu, a great Prabhupada disciple, he said, he's only coming for 3 days. If he says something against, because the propaganda is, oh, he's against Prabhupada, oh, he's against ISKCON. Whereas, in fact, Srila Gurudev saved ISKCON. Srila Gurudev was the best friend of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Gurudev did countless, immeasurable service to Srila Prabhupada and to ISKCON from its inception, from before its inception. And yet, the nature of when something comes that is immaculately pure, like the sun rising, everything else, its brightness is naturally eclipsed. And so it becomes a challenge to those who have established position. Magnetic attraction towards Gurudev. Gurudev is the sun with the heaviest gravity because he is the transcendent Guru. And Guru means heavy or gravity. And so everyone begins to come towards Gurudev. So it's almost like the black holes have to try to create propaganda, controversy to suck people away from that. But it was really funny because the community decided that, okay, Srila Gurudev, Srila Narayana Goswami Maharaj, he can come for 3 days. Afterwards, everything will go back to normal. Don't worry. Everything will go back to normal. And if he says something, improper or against something, then we'll politely request him, not to do that or not to stay. And so it was decided and Gurudev came. And just, contrary to the idea of, oh, everything will go back to normal, everything changed immediately. And everyone then, instead of staying for 3 days, we all followed him to San Francisco. And in the airport of San Francisco, my sister, Keshav Kantla, was the first of our family to get initiated. Because Gurudev asked her, oh, do you know the Mahamantra? We were all sitting in darshan and, on the benches waiting for Gurudev to board. Do you know that? And she said, yes. And he said, can you repeat after me? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. She would repeat, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that way he, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavana Jeev, Guru Krishna Prashade Bhai, Bhakti Lata Bij. Srila Gurudev very mercifully, it is said that by Krishna's mercy, we meet a genuine associate of Krishna as his messenger in this world, or Guru. And that then by that Guru's mercy, we come to Krishna. So in 97, we all followed, myself and my father, we went to Kartik that year. And that year, my father in Kartik got Diksha and I got Harinam. So I was 9 at the time. And my father got Diksha. I remember we had darshan with Srila Gurudeva afterwards. He gave me my name before I was Ram. So one of the things, again, bringing back the focus from Srila Gurudev, a lot of our family in general, there was kind of, we didn't understand exactly what is the highest aspiration of being in Braj and serving in Krishna Lila. And Gurudev gave us that. And so a lot of my family, my sister was Kunti. Gurudev gave the name Keshavakanta. My other sister was Rukmini. Gurudev gave the name Ragalata. My other sister, I have lots of sisters, Kanyakumari. Gurudev gave the name Kanupriya. My other sister, Madhavi, Gurudev gave the name Madan Mohini. And my littlest sister, she had the name Govinda Sundari. And Gurudev said, very nice. I'll keep it. Braj. So my name was Ram, but then Gurudev said, you are Rasik Mohan. Braj focus again. But my father, he was before Advaita Acharya, and Gurudev gave him the name Nanda Gopal. Actually, first there was a different name with like an A starting, but it wasn't so much Braj centric, and it was a little. So he said, "Oh, give me something Braj related." So Nanda Gopal. But that year when my father got Diksha, I remember being in the room with Gurudev, and just very innocently, I was like 9, My father got Diksha, so I was like, Gurudev, when is my turn? Like you're giving him the second level, And so Gurudev said, oh, maybe next year a new Braj. I said, okay, I'm going to hold you to it, Gurudev. And he said, okay, we'll see. So when he came to New Braj in 97, the rest of my family all got Harinam. But Gurudev was very merciful and he gave me Diksha. And I remember my Gurukul teacher, Brajendra Nandan Prabhu, was also there in the room, and he again heard the mantras. Gurudev would sometimes mercifully allow us to again hear the mantras to kind of again strengthen our conviction and strengthen our focus, because Gurudev would also explain them in brief very sweetly. So from that time onward, just being in the association of the devotees in those festivals, it's something that's really incomparable. Gurudev would say that these festivals will be remembered for thousands of years, because the potency of being in such an environment where there's Shuddha Harikatha, pure transcendental sound vibration from an associate of Krishna, in a community of devotees where everyone is centered on that one pointed focus. There's no ulterior motive. There's no, hustle or game going on. It's just that when Gurudev came, he said, I'm not coming to take anything from you. I'm only coming to give you this treasure of Krishna Prem. The only thing I ask is the most important thing is your heart, your ears. And through your ears, Harikatha says, Shrutek Shita. The Bhagavatam says, the sadhu gives darshan of Krishna through the ears by the sound of his transcendental Harikatha. And then he awakens our innate or dormant tendency of love for Krishna. And so Srila Gurudev would do that. And from early on, I don't know what it was, but I would see Srila Gurudev come 98 every year. And I started, every year I was lucky enough to go to Kartik with my father. And 97, we took the whole family. So, my father went into credit card debt. We would take 8 people and, the tickets and the passports and the visas and the festival fees. And we'd be paying off this debt for, years and years and years. But it was like so important to take that opportunity to, it says that life after life, we're born in this world, we get families, we have work, we have societies, but how often do we get the chance to be with the Mahabhagavat, a pure devotee, associate of Radha Krishna, to be in Braj? This is following the instruction of Rupa Goswami. Be in Braj with the Mahabhagavat, hearing Harikatha, going on parikrama, absorbing your mind in this. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. Then your life becomes truly successful. So we would all just follow around behind Gurudev in this kind of transcendental caravan, going to Europe, going to Australia, going to Maui or Hawaii, the big island, going to Alachua, going to Houston, going to San Francisco, to Los Angeles. Everyone would do whatever they could, Our whole clock of this yearly calendar revolved around Kartik, Navadvip Parikrama, New Braj Festival, Houston Festival, Alachua Festival, London Festival, England, if it was France or if it was Germany. or wherever it would be, everyone was thinking, oh, how will I get to the next festival? Because in those festivals, it felt like you were truly alive. Your soul had found its true meaning and purpose. And so with Srila Gurudev, I just remember, oh, Srila Gurudev, he's coming, but he's not just this person that we see. He's actually Radha Krishna's associate. And in that group of his associates, he's Radhika's Balyadasi. And this is such a strange thing to have that idea as a young boy. Oh, here's Gurudev. He's arrived. Gurudev would be coming, and we would wait and do kirtan for like 2 hours before Gurudev would arrive, because it's like the whole year. Some people hadn't seen him for a year or 6 months. The thirst is increasing again and again to see him. And so before he would come, we'd all be waiting for hours, and we'd be decorating and arranging the festival site for weeks. And then we would all be doing kirtan, and Gurudev would arrive, and he would come out of the car with Brajnath Prabhu, with Madha Maharaj, Pundarik Prabhu, so many of his close, Brinda Didi. And when Gurudev would come, you'd be thinking like, Radha Krishna, they've sent their Manjari, and he's here to greet us. We're here to greet him. He's here to meet us. And it's just such a special opportunity. And so I just remember some of my strongest recollections from childhood and then growing up with Gurudev is the importance of taking responsibility for Guru Seva, and how this is such an important thing that Gurudev teaches us, that we are on this spiritual journey to finally develop that relationship with Gurudev, that relationship of love with Krishna. And yet, Gurudev also wants us to help others. And so when I was just a boy, 10 years old, Gurudev was like, I want you to become a brahmachari and to serve my mission. And when you're young, it's like, that's a pretty heavy conception, because, growing up, oh, what do you want to be? Firefighter, sports athlete, this or that. Okay, now I'm supposed to become, a monk and serve my whole life in some kind of mission. But every year, Gurudev would say, oh, you're this tall. Now, when you're like this, I want you to come to the mat, become a brahmachari, serve my mission. And it's like every year, every time he would see me 2-3 times a year, he would tell me like that. And so I grew up with that sense of the need for a sacrifice and responsibility to serve, understanding that while our own journey is paramount, it's also important to develop the mood of seva to our guru, and not that we are serving others or serving the mission for the purpose of pleasing or satisfying or getting adoration from other people. No, Gurudev desires this. He's on this mission himself, and he just is looking for people to follow him on this path, because in the service of that mission, we can again and again come closer in our own spiritual journey towards that goal, and following the Shikshastakam, developing that mood of, oh Krishna, however you want to accept me or reject me, I'm yours. And just recently, I was translating Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Gayatri commentaries. And the Goswamis write specifically about when they discuss the aphorisms that the Mayavadis impersonalists propagate, that Tattvamasi, you are that, you are God, and you just have to forget that God has forgotten that he is God, and he is now in bewilderment, and he thinks he's the jiva in this world, and ultimately you are that. And the Goswamis say, no, that is a misinterpretation, and they give the proper grammatical setup of the aphorisms and say, no, it means I am yours. It means you are his. Tat tvam asi, you are his. And realize the necessity of developing that loving relationship with him, and that can give your soul true meaning. And just yesterday, we do a weekly Jaiva Dharma study group where we all sit and read and discuss. And we're reading in the 2nd chapter about Advaita Siddhi, the perfection of true yoga. Yoga means coming together. Gurudev would say, why do we pray like this? It's a universal symbol of prayer. One hand represents the soul, one hand represents God. Bhakti yoga is bringing them together. On that elevated stage of prem, divine love, Krishna, the supreme absolute truth, the infinite entity, comes to the level of the soul, and the soul comes up to the level of Krishna, and they develop this mood of prem, where they forget Krishna is God. The soul forgets, I'm just a finite particle of consciousness, the servant of Krishna, and they simply have a relationship of love. That is Advaita Siddhi, the perfection of prem, because that divine love is what gives the finite soul the infinite power in which to even conquer over the infinite. Like Mother Yashoda was able to sit Krishna down. No, I will go and rescue the milk. And Krishna's holding on tightly, God himself, but Mother Yashoda simply very easily puts him down. I will go save the milk. Why? She has that mood that anything in relation to Krishna, for the service of Krishna, is even more important than myself or my direct relation to Krishna, because that's that mood of mamata. We were reading just last night, Radharani says in Prem Samput, and I'll end with this. Radharani speaks very beautifully about what is true love. And it's such a special book. I really recommend anybody, if you really want to hear from Radharani herself about what is the true nature of Prem, then you should read Prem Samput that Gurudeva translated and by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Gurudeva also commented on. So Krishna comes disguised as a heavenly damsel in order to criticize himself to Radharani and see how she responds. And he tells the story that, oh, I once heard that flute song of Krishna even in the heavenly planets, and I was so attracted, I came to Braj all this way here. And then I saw how Krishna treated you all, and I was so angry at that, how he, almost very harshly treated you all. He said, oh, I'm only your beloved. And yet then he would meet with everyone else and break your hearts. And so I've come to meet with you and hear from you. You're so sweet and devoted in one point, and yet Krishna is so cruel. And then Radharani, for many verses, describes what is real love. And she says that those who have not realized and tasted that prem, that love, and who speak and preach about it, are only cheating themselves and others. That real prem is something that can ultimately not be described in words. It must be experienced. And therefore, every word of the Bhagavatam is glorifying that love and that prem. But if you're not having the vision to see it, then you may think it's this, it's about this, it's about this. But really, it's just about that prem. That prem is what makes Radha Krishna themselves dance. And then Radharani says that prem, you should take that seed of that, Shraddha, faith, the seed of prem, faith, and you should keep it very carefully protected in your heart like a small flame. Not let it be exposed outside, because then so many winds of different ideas and different association can blow it out. You must kindle that inside and let it develop bhava, bhakti, and ultimately to prem. And Radharani says that prem is so powerful that it destroys all obstacles. And she speaks very strongly. It's like verse 54, 55 in Prem Samput, that prem is like a lion. And a lion attacks and defeats all elephants. The prem is like a lion, and it can defeat anything else. I hope everyone can still hear me. It sounds like the microphone changed. That prem is like an elephant. That prem is like a lion, and it defeats the elephants and then eats them, and that nourishes their strength. And so any obstacle in the face of that love only nourishes it. Even if Krishna himself, Radharani says that if it's one's family members, if it's society, if it's any obstacles according to one's karma, according to anything, that obstacle, even Krishna going to meet another beloved, it only nourishes the prem, because that prem is a powerful lion. And then she says, she goes even stronger in her terms. She says all obstacles are like dogs, and lions very easily devour all these dogs. And that prem is always victorious. And yet, we must understand the importance of developing that prem, not merely going around and speaking about it. It's a very subtle distinction.
we're serving our Gurudev as his messengers, but we must always take the time out for that, developing that relationship with Gurudev and with Seva Kunj, with Radha Krishna. Because if we lose that focus of in the morning chanting, in the evening chanting, doing some sadhana, if we're only absorbed in the mission and we don't focus on that development of that prem, then we'll become victims of that fraudulent nature that Radharani is telling about. Radharani says, those who go around speaking about prem do not have it, and therefore they cheat themselves and others. But those who have it, they can embed it or inspire it in others. So Srila Gurudev having that prem, when Gurudev was banned from preaching in ISKCON, Gurudev said, you have woken up the lion. And now that lion will go everywhere. And how will you hold that back? No elephant-like obstacle, no dog-like obstacle, nothing can hold that force back. Abada Karuna Sindhu Katya Muhan, Gare Gare Bule Prem Amiyaravan. Nityananda, real guru, he has that prem. Adi Lila 146, Swami Prabhupada says, the gurus in our line are accepted by all the authorized scriptures, by all our acharyas, to be the empowered manifestations of Lord Nityananda and the maidservants of Srimati Radhika, her intimate associates. So having that powerful prem, when they go everywhere, they break open all walls and barriers and dams, holding it back and spread the flood of that prem. And so coming in contact with Srila Gurudev, it's not just the Harikatha, it's not the philosophy, it's not just the tattva, it's the moments with Srila Gurudev. Seeing his sweet gestures, feeling his presence, getting sweets from him or any little interaction with him that stays with us. And that stays with us till the end of our lives. Even if we forget Gurudev for some time, his sweet meetings with us, that time with him pulls us back towards Krishna, because it was that moment of prem with Gurudev, that sweetness of Gurudev giving us that, Radharani basically says that when it's just a little candle in our heart, we have to very carefully protect it. But when the finite soul comes in contact with the infinite by the power of prem, then we get that infinite. Why it's so interesting is that Jaivadharma Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when the finite comes in touch with the infinite through the power of love and devotion, then that finite spark of consciousness has the power to consume the entire universe, because its fuel is love. The fuel is prem and bhakti, and the soul is like a conscious spark of that sun of the transcendent entity Krishna. And so that spark has the power to ignite and fuel and burn down everything with the power of love. And so when that power of love is there, we can go and give it to everyone freely, because there's no limit of it. Then it's Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate. It's complete. And so whoever you give it to, Gurudev would give bhakti. He would inspire people and give bhakti. It's not like Gurudev is diminished. It's only more and more and more and more and more. And so I remember, sorry for going so long, but ending just on this note, I remember once when I was 13 or 14, Gurudev had been telling me that, you have to be a brahmachari, serve my mission. But that's not, the instruction is not, from a Mahabhagavat, that instruction is extremely powerful. But what I would like to say is more powerful even, is when you're in these festivals and you get a taste, even if it's only for a moment, why they say lava matra sadhu sangha, a moment association with the sadhu gives you all perfection. Sarva siddhi hoy. Because in those moments with Gurudev, I remember I was hearing Gurudev speak about Raghunath Das Goswami. And then we had a drama play about Raghunath Das Goswami, and then such a powerful kirtan. And that night, I just remember, it's like, Krishna, Gurudev, if you want this, if you want me to offer my soul to Krishna, I can try. And it was such a powerful experience that was lasting a few days. And then, life goes on. You're not always at that peak moment. But those moments give you, it's like, if once you tell Krishna, I'm yours, Krishna says, okay, contract signed. You're mine. And then I feel like everything else will kind of end up leading you to that direction. And so it's those festivals with Srila Gurudev where we hear his Harikatha, where we hear him singing, where we have those interactions. Gurudev would give out sweets and we would all go up and take a cookie or a laddu. And, the Kartik festivals with Gurudev, where Gurudev would go to do Anukut and Giriraj and say, I'm praying on your behalf. Gurudev would go to Anukut, Giriraj, and saying, Giriraj will give whatever you desire. But then you might desire the wrong thing. So I'm praying on your behalf, and you should repeat after me, Tavevasmi, Najivami Tvaya Vina, Iti Vigyaya Rathe Tvam, Nayamam Charantike. And Gurudev would say, this is a very high thing, but if I don't preserve it and give it to the world, it will be lost. So you should worship this ideal on your altar. And we do that by Seva Kunj. We worship this ideal of the glories of the Braja Gopis and Srimati Radhika and her service by I think probably 90 or more % of the devotees of Srila Gurudev have Seva Kunj in their house somewhere. And Gurudev said, this is my heart. This is your goal. And we may not be able to yet grasp that, but if we can just develop respect for it, then our Vaishnavas say that you may not, if you get that attainment or you have that mood, then Radharani or Krishna will give you whatever place is proper for you. But first, you must develop respect for that. If you cannot respect that message of Chaitanya Charitamrita, that message of Mahaprabhu, Anarpita Chirim Chirat Samarpayitum Unata Ujvala Rasam Svabhakti Shriyam. If you cannot understand and respect what Mahaprabhu wanted to give, then your progress in devotional life will be very difficult. So develop honor and respect for that exalted thing. And just have faith in your Gurudev that is a very beautiful and special thing. And I've heard from the Vaishnavas, it's a very difficult thing to grasp, but just follow the process and it will come to you. So thank you so much for inviting me on to you all, and Dandavat pranams to everybody. Vancha kalpatrubhyasya kripa sindhuveva chapritanang pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Rasika Prabhu. Sorry, Yashodananda Prabhu is listening, but is on the move somewhere, so he can't actually conclude. But what I wanted to say was that you've so eloquently merged your memories with Srila Gurudev with his Vani, and it's just so beautiful, and it's very inspiring, because for someone like me who doesn't know anything, just to imbibe what he came to give, and how, I think I'm now realizing how rare someone like Srila Gurudev is in our life, and what he gave. Even when we look at other Gaudiya mats and outside, they may not have a clear goal, but with Gurudev's Sangha, everyone has that clear one goal, and that's Radhadasyam. And Gurudev really imbibed that and embedded that within our hearts from the start. It was never like a slowly get there. The first time you met him, you would know Radhadasyam is your goal, and progress through that. And you really spoke very beautifully, and you spoke about how Gurudev setting the goal, and Arjun, and Gurudev gave us that one pointedness to our goal, and not just our goal, but to him and Parampara, etc. So I'm just really, really fortunate, and I'm just glad that you came and spoke such beautifully about Srila Gurudev. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully coming out to the ashram in New York, as many of us are. So hopefully we'll be able to come and do a festival. So I think you've got 80 acres of land or something like that, right?
60,
so
yeah.
Yes, so if you don't mind, we'll find a small spot in the ashram, Gurudev's ashram, to come and visit. So thank you so much for coming on.